second session. Over to Abhijita ma'am, please.
Thank you, Dr. Kalani Sarangi, madam. Now, I feel privileged to introduce the speaker of the second session, Dr. D.M. Praharaj sir. He taught philosophy for 45 years in different colleges and different universities of our state. He has been engaged in conducting and guiding research work. 6 scholars have been awarded PhD degree under his supervision. He has independently authored 5 books in logic and philosophy, including the book on Vedic and Upanishadic philosophy. He has been co-author of 5 logic books published by the Textbook Bureau and the CHSC Odisha. He has been one of the compilers of Odia Glossary in Philosophy. About 60 articles of him are published in the philosophy journals and books in the state and national level. He has delivered general presidential address in all Odisha Philosophy Association in the year 2019 at the Ravenshaw University. He has received the Lifetime Achievement Award in Philosophy from All Odisha Philosophy Association in the year 2018 and also from PG Department of Philosophy, MPC College, Baripada previously. In this session of the webinar, he is going to speak on the topic Vedantic culture, how far humanistic? Vedantic culture, how far humanistic? With this, I welcome you, sir, to deliver your speech to the audience. Over to Dr. Praharaj sir. Sir, please, sir. Please, sir, continue. Praharaj sir.
Hello.
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 Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Namaskar, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Abhijita. Good afternoon to everyone in this program. Esteemed Chairperson, Dr. C. Lakshmi, Principal of Kamala Nehru College, my teacher, Professor S.K. Mohanty, sir, Head of the Department Philosophy, Dr. Sushant Patnaik, Faculties of Philosophy, Dr. Abhijita Das and Dr. Kalyani Sarangi, who is also the coordinator of this program, faculties of the other departments of the college and staffs, dear students of philosophy, all friendly listeners and viewers of this World Philosophy Day observation ceremony. I am very much thankful to the organizers of this celebration for inviting me to share my thoughts in such a big and lauded gathering. It is quite pleasant on my part to associate myself in the function of this department for the reason that I consider that it is one unique department of our state where all the 3 teachers are doctorate degree holders as well as good teachers. Now, I'll speak on the occasion. Before going to my speech, I will like to share my views that today we are going to observe the World Philosophy Day, and the theme is taken, that is the philosophy of the world family, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It's a very nice combination on which we are going to discuss something. About Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, World Philosophy Day, you all know. So I will speak 2 to 3 sentences on Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It is that admirable statement of our pride heritage, which is not only engraved in the entrance hall of our parliament, but On various occasions, it has been pronounced by our veteran leaders as the unifying principle of the mankind. For example, Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of our independent India, was very often using this phrase, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, in his speeches. Quite interestingly, in 1989, when people developed the notion of first, second, third worlds, Rajiv Gandhi cited Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam to challenge the concept and revive the idea of one world and put forward the notion of Earth citizen. In 2002, Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee employed this statement to assert, to quote, India's understanding and advocacy of human rights are universal as they are ancient, unquote, in a meeting on the National Human Rights Institution of Asia Pacific Nations. Manmohan Singh deployed this said expression to defend India's approach to climate change and global warming while accepting the global responsibility at Helidendam G8 summit. Former President of India, Pranab Mukherjee, in 2007, when he was the External Affairs Minister, declared in the Parliament, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is our foreign policy. Narendra Modi, in his speech at the United Nations in 2014, used the ideal to reassert the reform the Security Council and lament on the inability of the world body to effectively deal with the cross-border terrorism. President Ramnath Kovind, in the context of India's nation-building project aiming at building a composite and cohesive world, has used this ideal of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And most astonishingly, in 2018, at Davos of Switzerland, the Prime Minister in his speech has also referred that ages ago, India echoed Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. All these instances remind us the importance of the lofty ideal of Vedantic statement, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is the theme of this periodical program. Prior to my deliberation, you have all heard my teacher's deliberation on earth ethics, which was very scholarly, simple, as well as most befitting for this occasion. I will also take attempt in that direction from different angle. Now, I will introduce my topic by mentioning some introductory words. Those are, few days back, I was informed by the faculties of philosophy of Kamala Nehru College to speak something centering around the lofty ideal of Vedantic thought, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Being influenced by the concept of practical Vedanta of Swami Vivekananda, I said I would like to speak something about the practicality of this lofty ideal of Vedanta, which appears to be very much utopian in the present scenario of the globe. Nobody knows when in actuality world was factually treated as one family, when the world population was supposed to be only 40 million in 5000 BC. Now we are thinking about the actualization of the world family when the population has reached 7.8 billion in 2020. With so much of political, economic, religious, and cultural diversities in and around 195 or 196 recognized nations of the globe. Very often we talk about it, we aspire it, and we suggest actualizing it. Everyone knows that it would be like that of searching the black cat in a dark room where it is absent. Then what is the fun of proposing about the utopian ideal? In order to answer this question, I would like to mention the example of advocacy of another utopian ideal, that is Gandhian concept of Sarvodaya. This concept of Sarvodaya stands for the upliftment of all. Many criticize Sarvodaya to be utopian, as the utopia upliftment of all to be practically not possible. But Gandhian approach was that there must be maximum effort for the achievement of the goal so that upliftment of the majority can be possible. In the similar manner, it may not be possible that each and every will realize the Vedantic ideal of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but the effort must be there to realize the ideal behind it and to maximize the understanding, realizing the attempt in the adoption of such Vedantic ideal in our life. This webinar is an effort in this mission. Now, my teacher Saroj sir has already pointed out, still then I am adding to it. While talking about the Vedantic culture, of which Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is an essential component, it is quite interesting to note that the other notable cultures are not far away from this ideal. This point has been emphasized by my previous speaker, Maishar. From the internet source, it has been collected that this principle of fundamental unity and interconnectedness of all life forms are also emphasized in various ways in different manners in different spheres. For example, the people of America describe this unity as Mitakwe Onashan. Africans call it Ubuntu. I exist because you exist. In Christianity, we find the golden rule of do unto others as you would have others do unto you. In Islam, we find Mutafikalin, or the interdependence of all beings. Buddhism uses the concept of Indra's net to symbolize the interconnectedness of all life forms. In Hinduism, the ideal of Vedanta is the principle of unity that plays the vital role. Here a question may be raised that since Vedanta philosophy unmistakably advocates spiritualism, how can it be treated as humanism? To this question, my submission is that in a pure theoretical plane, when we make a comparative study of different ontological doctrines, Vedanta metaphysics cannot be equated with humanism. It is because in the framework of humanism, supremacy of Brahman cannot be accommodated. In humanism, neither spirit nor matter, neither ghost nor machine, neither supernatural power nor atom can be the primary concepts. But what I am going to say is that the practical aspect of Vedanta is well connected with the human affairs and can lead to a humanistic Vedantic culture. For me, the philosophy of Vedanta is the reality about man, for the sake of man, in the sense, for the knowledge of man, and finally to be realized by man, in the sense, it has to be reflected in the living of man. So, it has to be humanistic, but need not be anthropocentric. Why I have mentioned that it need not be anthropocentric? The reason is that many people suffer from the habit of criticizing anthropocentrism on the ground that in this framework, all other species and flora and fauna are neglected and not taken into account which does not arise in case of humanistic approach. Humanism does not propagate everything for the benefit of man, for the pleasure of man, and for the monopoly of man at the cost of animal kingdom or the biosphere. The principle of unity or the desire of well-being of man obviously includes our planet, our nature, all countries, and the entire humanity. With this background, I have decided to talk on Vedantic culture, how far humanistic, with reference to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. My talk will comprise two sections. First, about the expression Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and the picture of our Vedantic culture. Second, the statement Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, how far it is humanistic. The first section. The expression Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is treated as the most important recommendation for the mankind, originally occurs in the Rig Veda, as well as in the 71st verse of the 6th chapter of Maha Upanishad, which is around 800 BC or contemporary of Isha Upanishad. It is also found to be used in the Hitopuja Desha. The expression happens to be the combination of three Sanskrit words, as Sushant has pointed out: Vasudha, Iva, Kutumbakam, to mean the earth alone, a family. Normally, it is understood as one earth, one family, or the whole world is one family. It is as good as saying all beings on earth belong to a single family. The presence of the word Kutumba or family, which is a social concept, shows the import of the expression that not only biologically or anthropologically mankind is one species, but socially also oneness has to be realized and established. I have translated the whole verse which has been mentioned in the Maha Upanishad in the following manner. English translation. The narrow-minded only considers one is a relative and the other is a stranger. Live life of magnanimity. The entire world is one family. Widen the horizon of your mind. Follow detachment with magnanimity. Enjoy freedom as the fruits of the knowledge of the unity or Brahman. Now, if this is the verse, what is the fundamental presupposition behind this verse or behind this expression, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam? I have tried to mention in this manner the supposition behind the theme. Irrespective of color and region, that is the place of birth, on the one hand, and man-centered or acquired factors like caste, religion, wealth, and education on the other. The following four factors are important. Gradation or differentiation among men and men should not be maintained in any form. 1. 2. Love and fellow feeling must be the basis of relationship among men and men. 3. Hatred of any kind has to be discarded. 4. Absence of right knowledge is the basis of duality or plurality. It appears that the Upanishadic seers were able to visualize that there would be a vast growth of population of mankind, leading to many kinds of differentiations. And there will be the necessity of the realization of oneness or unity among souls. Thus, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is enriched with the Vedantic ideal of ancient wisdom, is the Vedic manifesto for the better future of mankind and ideal living. Coming to similar statements, similar views, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is not the only statement to express this Vedantic idea. There is another important statement, that is Yatra Vishwam Bhavati Ekanidam, where the whole world becomes one abode or bird's cage, also express almost the same idea. In the similar manner, we find another expression, Kribanto Vishwam Aryam. Let us make this world a noble place to live in. Such Vedantic ideal is not different from other Upanishadic messages like Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. May all beings in all worlds be happy, or may all beings everywhere be happy and free. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. May all live happily. Sarve Santu Niramaya. May all be devoid of disease. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. May all have well-being. Ma Kasyid Dukha Bhag Bhavet. May none have misery of any sort. Thus, the Vedantic ideals rest on the principle of unity, and the approach is always universalistic. This is my submission, that the Vedantic ideal rests on the principle of unity, and the approach is always universalistic. That is a strong denial of diversity and individualistic approach. Now, how we can find this approach in the Upanishads? The principle of unity first I will take up. In this respect, it may be pointed out that the Kathopanishad clearly emphasizes on the unity by mentioning Neho Nanasti Kinchana and another phrase, Tato no Bijugupshate. Let me explain. Neho Nanasti Kinchana. It means there is no diversity whatsoever. It has been said that the ultimate reality, Brahman, or universal consciousness, can only be known through consciousness. One cannot find any kind of difference here. He who finds difference is away from right knowledge and away from the right direction. Similarly, the meaning of Tatono Bijugupshate is there is no hatred for others. The motive behind this expression is that the right knowledge of the reality will take away the hatred for others. It is because the right knowledge constitutes the knowledge of oneness, non-difference. If there is no difference between one being and another, then how can there be hatred for others? Ishopanishad also mentions the same view in two of its verses. Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Iva Anupashyati Sarva Bhuteshu Cha Atman Tatano Vijugushyate. Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atma Iva Abhut Vijanata Tatra Ko Moha Ka Soka Ekatvam Anupashyate. That he who sees all beings in his own self and also sees the self in all beings, for that reason he feels no hatred. When unity is realized by the individual, what delusion, what sorrow can there be who has perceived the oneness? Thus it is in that most of the Upanishads believe in the stand that if the divine source is one, then how we as individuals are different. If the whole ocean is one, then how a drop of ocean is different from the ocean? The all-pervading consciousness in the whole humanity is universal consciousness, which is shared by each one of us. It cannot be differentiated. Differentiation will lead to disaster. Thus, in the Vedantic text, the primary message is the message of realization of unity. It is because diversity leads to clash of interest between individuals and individuals, families and families, communities and communities, nations and nations, and obviously, unity disappears and diversity dominates. If every human being tries to realize the importance of the unity, there cannot be hatred for others, and we can proceed towards a world family. This view that there is universal consciousness and consciousness cannot be thought of in plurality has been also certified by scientists. Scientists like Erwin Schrödinger, quantum physicists like David Bohm had also certified that consciousness cannot be plural. Many biologists also support this stand. The entire Upanishadic or Vedantic literature suggests giving up the delusion of separateness and adopting the principle of unity, which will be the mark of obtaining the proper knowledge. To quote what has been said in the book, What is Life by the scientist, this basic oneness, this non-separateness is the theme of modern scientific thought as well. Greatest discovery of sciences exposes the oneness between the things and the forces of nature, and also between the nature and man. The differences are seen in surface level, but the deeper scientific research finds the linkage. Physics has discovered the interconnections between terrestrial and celestial phenomena. Biology has discovered the linkage between organism and organisms and natural environments. Lincoln Barnett, in the book The Universe, and Dr. Einstein has mentioned that initially scientists achieved success in finding 92 types of different natural substances of the world. But in special relativity, Einstein demonstrated the equivalence of matter and energy, and the general relativity, he showed the indivisibility of space-time continuum. To quote, thus all man's perception of the world and all his abstract intuitions of reality is finally merging into one, and the deep underlying unity of the universe is laid bare. Now, I have explained how Vedantic culture rests upon one fundamental principle, that is the principle of unity and denial of diversity. Now I'll come to the next part of my talk, that is how far it is humanistic and why should we consider it to be humanistic. For this, it is needed to examine what are the charges against this culture to be treated as non-humanistic. I have taken 4 charges into consideration against Vedantic culture to be humanistic. Those 4 charges are like this. 1, there is a strong criticism against the Vedantic culture and tradition that it is spiritualistic, ascetic, pessimistic, theocentric, otherworldly, unconcerned with human affair. There might be some humanitarian considerations here and there in Vedantic literatures, but for that, it cannot be treated as humanistic. The second one, whatever humanistic ideals are there, those are confined to limited minds only. Third one, Vedantic ideal is unable to provide judgment. What is all aspects of this has been with different rather synthetic denial human and the social challenge. In fact, it is from this region to present situation. Man need to build a what and build and basic
Hello. Hello, sir. Hello. Hello. हेलो प्रहलाद सर आपन को आवाज सुना जाउनी नेटवर्क इश्यू हो जे आपन कर हेलो
तमरो दुर्गा तमरो एटा कर दियो तमरो वीडियोटा को ऑफ कर दिए कुह जे बेटर हबो तो वीडियोटा को ऑफ कर दिले ऑडियोटा को खाली भलो सुनियो Your picture is not clear. But voice also is breaking.
ना आवाज ब्रेक हो जी वॉइस क्लियर होनी
सर आउ थरे जॉइन करी जांतु डिस्कनेक्ट करी आउ थरे रीजॉइन करंतु
हेलो हेलो यस सर एबे सुना हो जी
हेलो
ना सर ठीक है सुना हो मैंने क्लियर
एबे होला तो
हां सर एबे ठीक सुना
हेलो
हां सर सुना हो जी
The strong argument behind the criticism is that man has the potency to build his own destiny. Since man believes in the supernatural power and surrenders before it, being influenced by the scriptures, those contain the Vedantic ideals, man is unable to function to his best capacity, and the society is affected by this practice. Therefore, Vedantic culture is not humanistic or anti-humanistic. My reaction to this argument. What is the primary concern of humanism? I think it is human welfare through the human potency. Does the Vedantic ideal stand on the way of human welfare? If so, then in what manner? Just because most of the theological claims are not scientifically acceptable, the ideals of Vedanta are non-humanistic and against human welfare, then here it is taken for granted that Vedanta comes under the theology or non-different from theology. For me, it is difficult to grasp that if Vedantic ideal is the acceptance of the reality of the universal consciousness and the principle of unity, then wherefrom comes the thought of surrendering before the supernatural power and losing the human potency? Coming to the practical consideration, in my personal life, I am a theist, but I have never felt that it has ever stood on the way thinking that I can also be a humanist. To me, to become humanist, neither theism nor atheism can help or debar. Just because the Vedantic philosophy and the theological considerations are found in the same scriptures, some identify theology with philosophy, and the charges can be framed against theological assertions are also applied against philosophical assertions. If we accept this view, then why should there be a separate field of study, philosophy? If philosophical assertions will be separated from religious assertions, then there will be no problem to treat Vedantic culture to be humanistic. Non-humanistic process of witness in our society, it does not mean the ideas of Vedanta are not responsible. So they are based on the principle of unity, those one nature and no humanity. It is wrong just ignored by the majority. It is our job, the job of intellectuals, to see that the majority should realize the importance of the welfare. Vedantic idea and create in the life for the full society. We have seen that there have been attempts to work out the slogans like liberalization. Is there any issues? Hello? Hello?
Hello? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible. Sometimes your voice is breaking. So, within 5 or 10 minutes.
Hello?
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 Hello? Yes, sir.
Hello?
Hello? Yes, sir. You are audible, sir. Hello?
We have seen that there have been attempts to work out the slogans like liberalization, globalization, humanization, etc. But those are not actually based on Vedantic ideals. Rather, behind those attempts, greedy profit-making desires appear to be there. These activities are sometimes treated to be there in humanistic agenda, whereas Vedantic culture, which aims at the unity of the mankind, knowing the real nature of man, is treated to be non-humanistic. To me, respecting humanity and being human is not humanism. Let me point out another problem. I feel that unfortunately at the beginning, Vedantic idea was it was one of the few Brahmins and deliberately given a grasp. The motive questions that one supremacy, including the gradation to the caste system, citing scriptural support of the Rig Veda and Bhagavad that is Chaturvarnamaya Sushta. The trial was taken by some enlightened leaders like Vivekananda, Gandhi, and some others to make it public, but it was much late. By that time, the impact of the feeling of gradation found to be deep-rooted. But remarkable changes cannot be denied in the sense that I saw within 50 years back in our culture regarding caste rigidity reduced like anything today. The best example is the profuse increase of the intercaste marriages in our society in the recent days. Moreover, the feeling and practice of the caste gradation, the scriptures are not responsible, but the interpretation of the scriptures are responsible. There are many examples, but I shall cite one important example. The Orthodox scholars have given the understanding of gradation, attaching emphasis on the placement of mouth, shoulder, thigh, foot of a standing human, and have fixed the hierarchy accordingly. But a Vedanta scholar like Ganeshwar Mishra could understand the same verse without finding any gradation in the fourfold division. He could have criticized those views considering being non-humanistic and harmful for social solidarity. But he has taken attempt to show that the fourfold division of the mankind was a social necessity of the time. No one is superior or inferior among them. It is not suggested to go back to the Vedic days and to follow everything that is there in the Vedas with reverence, which has been suggested by few orthodox thinkers. It is non-philosophical and dogmatic to claim that Vedas are infallible and whatever is not in accordance with Vedic are to be thrown out. As developing any type of blind allegiance towards Vedic authority is irrational, developing aversion and rejecting everything whatever is there in the Vedas is equally irrational. So rational screening of those literatures should be done to pick up the lotus out of the mud. At the end, before going to the epilogue, my humble submission is that ideal of Vedanta has to be vetted from all kinds of religious leanings. Understanding of Vedanta is possible without religious allegiance. Then alone we can realize its humanistic. Within the boundaries of religion, it may not be able. Religious activities are personal, optional, and individualistic. So it should not be entangled with philosophy. Now epilogue, conclusion. The plight is that even though I say that Vedantic culture is humanistic and it is as old as the days of the Upanishads, we are unable to find its proper reflection in our culture. It shows that Vedantic culture failed someone to guide the what it is that the practice of Vedanta is getting due to our importance on differences of not unity. That is why we are claiming that it is not beneficial for the mankind. The time has come to get back to our culture, attaching emphasis on unity and unifying principle. Family grows with unity and breaks in diversity. The principle of unity which unites has to be followed. If majority of the people can understand the real import of the Vedic and Upanishadic message like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and adopt those to be the basics of our culture, then good life and good society and good art will not be far off. Let me expect the webinar in following. We talk together, we move together, we think together, we resolve together. Thus together we can take this world. Last few lines. My summary of the total lecture. The statement Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam represents the proud heritage of our Vedantic culture. It appears utopian but needs actualization. It believes in the unity, not diversity. It is not scriptures, but interpretation of scriptures which are responsible for social good or evil. Vedanta is theoretically spiritualistic, and the culture based on it is practically humanistic, not mere humanitarian. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for
Over
your
to Kalyani.
thank you, sir, for your very innovative way of discussing the concept Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam from the glass of Vedanta tradition. And in your deliberation, you began with the principle of unity, which is nothing other than the ideal of the Vedanta tradition, where there is through Sravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana, that is nothing but the practical aspect of our Vedanta teaching, where you emphasizes on the concept of humanism, and very beautifully you made a distinction between humanism and anthropocentrism, and in your deliberation you identified the very concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam with many Vedic injunctions like Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramaya, and so on and so forth. So where again love only will prevail. There is no place for diversity, no place for hatred, no place for animosity, and this is possible only when one gives importance on the Nididhyasana aspect of the Vedanta tradition, where one can see others in himself and himself in others, that one has to practice. And again, the concept of interconnectedness and the interdependence, which we usually discuss in environmental ethics, that you very beautifully connected with the Vedanta tradition. That is something we should highly praise. And finally, you conclude that we have to develop not the attitude of sympathy, not the attitude of the apathy, rather we have to develop the attitude of empathy to have a good life, to have a good society, and to have a harmonious and beautiful earth. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your in-depth analysis of the topic. And we have couple of questions. We only take 2 questions because we are behind the schedule. So anyhow, we have to be in time. So we will take up only 2 questions. There is a question from Hanumant Deshmukh. He asked that he only complimented, and there is a question from just a minute, from Suchismita Das. She asked that how is the sentiment of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam can be realized? How is the sentiment of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam realized? This is her question, sir. Over to Prahara, sir. Sir, are you there?
Hello.
Sir, you are audible.
I'm there, but I couldn't listen the question.
Okay, sir. Sir, there is a question.
Please tell me the question.
Okay, there is a question from
You
Suchismita.
please tell me once.
There is a
Yes.
There
What
is
is that question?
And the question is that how the sentiment of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam can be realized? How the sentiment of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam can be realized?
Oh. I have mentioned the passages from Upanishads to give you the method to realize the sentiment. You have to feel oneness among yourselves. The next person which you meet is not different from you. That is difference in the surface level, but so far as the reality of soul or reality of Atman is concerned, we share the sameness. So we need not differentiate between man and man, community and community, and that is the process we can realize the ideal of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, there is also another question from Srinivasan Krishnamurthy. And he asked that how in a country like India that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is possible when we have multi-religions, multi-cultures, multi-traditions, multi-languages, multi-caste and multi-colored people.
Okay. It's no doubt a very common thinking about it. I have mentioned in my lecture that not only in India we are facing so many religions, so many cultures. So if we are talking about the world, think how many can be possible. How you can think? We can only think in a theoretical level. And this question was also asked in different languages to my to the other speaker. And how, if it is a statement from Hindu, then why, how can people of other religions will accept it? It is ideal to be followed by one and all, and the ideal is already there in all other cultures. It is not the ideal in our culture, and it is not in all other culture. Regarding India, when the question comes, let me read out one passage that will give the picture of India. This passage is one of Lord Macaulay's address to the British Parliament on 2nd February 1835. And that passage runs like this. I have travelled across the length and breadth of India. I have not seen one person who is a beggar, who is a thief. Such wealth I have seen in this country, such high moral values, people of such caliber, that I do not think we would ever conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of the nation, which is her spiritual and cultural heritage. And therefore, I propose that we replace her old and ancient education system, her culture, for if the Indians think that all that is foreign and English is good and greater their own, they will lose their self-esteem, their native culture, and they will become what we want them, a truly dominated nation. Second part of the quoted thing may be dropped, but learn the first part. He has experienced India to be one so far as culture is concerned. So diversity is our formation, unity is our aim. We have to overcome this. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your accepting our invitation, for presenting the paper on the eve of the World Philosophy Day, and for your very thought-provoking and very clear presentation. Thank you, sir. May I now have the pleasure of requesting our head of the department and the partner of this program, Dr. Sushant Kumar Patnaik, to offer the vote of thanks. Over to Sushant Kumar Patnaik, sir.
It is a great pleasure for me to speak in this webinar and to hear from so many learned speakers and the participants. I extend my gratitude to Professor Saroj Kumar Mahanti and Professor Durga Madhav Praharaj for giving us their valuable time today and speaking on this occasion. I thank on behalf of our department, on behalf of our college, to the speakers who agreed and delivered their valuable talks relating to the theme of the celebration of the World Philosophy Day. At the very outset, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to ICPR for their financial support to hold their webinar in this manner. And I am also thankful to our principal, Professor Dr. C. Lakshmi Madam, for supporting me in all kinds of academic activities of the department and for his valuable time for our webinar. I'd like to thank Mr. Debashish Sarangi, lecturer, LN Mahavidyalaya Baleshwar, for his contribution and technical support to make this webinar grand success. I am also thankful to my revered teacher, Professor Mahabatra sir, and Professor Mahabatra sir, Alokya madam, and there is Rand Mahanti sir, and Dhadeshwar Ghosh sir, and all other distinguished participants. I am also thankful to my students and colleagues for their valuable support. Last but not least, I express my gratitude to all my colleagues, especially Kaustubh Madam and Kalyani Madam, for their wholehearted support to this webinar. My thanks are due to all the staffs of our college for their immense help and support for this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for your active participation to make it a success. So let's join our hands together for world peace and harmony, to celebrate diversity and to follow only one religion, that is the human religion, and believe and celebrate one world and one family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Namaskar to all of you. Namaskar.